What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. 3 hat tricks last night. You either had them. The winning lineup had 2 of them, I think. I don't think any lineup I saw had all 3. That would have been a scene. But just funny how that goes. Not my night last night. I don't know how you did, but
yeah. No. I had St. Louis and Dallas. Kind of moderately frustrating. I didn't see much of the Dallas game because I was stuck watching St. Louis and Toronto, which I extremely regret. But the Blues top line actually looked pretty good. They just really couldn't do anything. I think Thomas had an assist on the power play goal, but that was about it. So, yeah, the winning lineup, the 100K, had a 3-2-1 build. Chicago won plus Levshunov plus Gensel and Kucherov. So they had 2 of the 3 hat tricks. Had Darren Radish on the point, so they got a 25-some point night there. So, yeah, congrats to whoever won the 100K. It was a nice lineup, but not my night.
It was pretty funny because, I liked Tampa too, but I didn't want to stack them without Kucherov. And then they moved Kucherov there, and then Gensel hats. It's just head of the curve, behind the fastball, but can't hit the nuts if you don't play. And we have a 4-game slate here tonight. Some interesting matchups here. Not I would say the slate is better from a viewing perspective. Some of these chalk spots and games are crazy. There's a good early game to watch. There's a decent middle game. There's a decent late game. The only game that I will not be tuning into is the Flames and the Sabres. I'd rather get a root canal. But yeah, I would say that I'm frustrated that every time DraftKings has one of these GPPs, I don't do well. But the thing is, right, in the single entry life, how often are you at the top of the leaderboards anyway? It's just magnified because there's $100,000 up top, but off single entry, you make your seasons off 2 or 3 nights basically, and you got to keep in perspective that even if you had a great night last night, the chances of you winning 100K, even so, weren't great. So it's just if you're down on yourself if you had a ticket and it busted, just realize there'll be more opportunities. You got to keep grinding because single entry is a biatch.
Yeah, it is. Generally speaking, my seasons come down to 2 pretty good nights and then 1 really big night will basically be my profit for the year. I think the NHL season this year is 183 days long. Add in maybe a dozen or so weekend slates, Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, whatever, maybe 200. So 1 out of every 60 or 70 slates that you play will be a really, really good night. I imagine there are there are definitely better players than me that would do even better than that. But, you wouldn't even have 1 great night a month. So that's the way it happens when you're playing single entry. Interesting 4-game slate ahead of us here tonight because there are some pretty good games. Edmonton's obviously not playing their best, but Edmonton, Washington, if those 2 teams are at the top of their game, that's one of those potential Stanley Cup final type of games. Carolina, Minnesota, a little bit later on. Minnesota, not setting the world on fire necessarily, but I think wins in 4 of their last 5 games or something like that. So they're starting to turn things around. The late game, 2 teams near the top of their division. The Bruins are 1 point back. Anaheim's actually at the top. So a battle of near division leaders between Boston and Anaheim in the late one. So you're right. From a viewing perspective, it looks like a really good slate. From a DFS perspective, it's not. I definitely yesterday was worse. I just 100%. Basically, any slate that has the Seattle Kraken on it, I'll automatically grade as the worst. It's just kind of the way it is. But yeah, I kind of like this little 4-gamer. There is one spot that has heavy ownership, and then there's like 8 lines between 10 and 20% expected ownership. So like you don't play that one spot. You basically go kind of wherever you want. And I like for a 4-gamer, that's moderately rare, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad Colorado 1 isn't on this slate because they'd be like 86% owned, and you'd have to decide whether you want to get run over by McKinnon or have him bust in your lineup. But anyway, let's get into this slate. Let's start it off with that Edmonton Oilers game. They are heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 3.3 total. Edmonton going 11-7, so take these lines with a grain of salt. They have McDavid, Roslovic, Savoie, Draisaitl, Mangiapane, Podkolzin, Hyman, Henrique, Frederick. Washington going Ovechkin, Strome, McMichael, Wilson, Protas, Sordif, Leonard, Beauvillier, Nick Dowd. Like I just said, I wouldn't put too much stock in these Edmonton lines. When they go 11-7, you're going to see a lot of shifts with McDavid and Draisaitl together. Normally, right, if this game was on yesterday's slate and it made it a 9-game slate, like this would be a really tough spot to play Edmonton. Washington has been a good defensive team. Logan Thompson has been one of the best goalies in the NHL. He's starting tonight. It's not the best power play spot. Edmonton looks atrocious. There still isn't a ton of ownership on Edmonton here for those reasons, but it is a 4-game slate, and McDavid is matchup proof. When I was going over this slate, I can't help but think, whether it was 3 or 4 years ago, about the time McDavid was going in to face Boston against Bergeron. He scored twice at like 2% owned. Like, it doesn't matter who McDavid is playing against. If he wants to, he can destroy you. I don't think I would just straight up stack McDavid, Roslovic, Savoie. Like, if they are off to a bad start or they're behind, you're going to see a lot of shifts of McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman. It's just what it's going to be. Like, those 3 guys are going to play the most minutes. It doesn't matter what line they start on. The problem with that is if you do a McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman stack, it's over $23,000 on the road against Logan Thompson. But if you look across the board, right, on this slate, that would be the most expensive thing you could do by far. Carolina 1's the most expensive line at the slate at 19.4. So, like, if you're spending up anywhere, this is where you're going to do it. And I think it's an interesting play. They have a 3.1 total, which is large going into Washington. So, like, I think if I'm playing Edmonton here tonight, I think you can go about it a couple ways. I think you could one-off McDavid here tonight. I think that's fine. He's not getting a ton of ownership. You know, McDavid always comes in higher than we have him projected just because of the name value. So maybe you'll see him 11, 12, 13%, something like that here tonight. That's fine on a 4-gamer. Like, that's really low. You can do like a double center stack, like just go McDavid, Draisaitl. You could power play stack and do like McDavid, Draisaitl, Roslovic to keep the cost down. But I think you either go like one-off McDavid or you just you load in some hammers and you go McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman. Because Hyman's going to be fairly low owned because people are going to see that he's on the 3rd line, whatever, and be like, I don't really want to do it. But like, he's going to play with McDavid a fair bit here tonight. So I don't love the spot, but the ownership is good enough on a 4-game slate with a 3.1 total that I think going really expensive Edmonton is going to put you on a unique build. It's just a question if you want to do it. 1, obviously, I don't make your lineups, and neither does Cliffy. And 2, if you can fill out your lineup and be comfortable with it. So I don't love Edmonton in this spot, but I think if you're going to play them, you go full ass instead of half ass and just load in the big boys. On the Washington side, 20% on Ovechkin, Strome, McMichael. Like, they've been good. Don't get me wrong. But, 20%, it's the second highest projected line of the night besides Buffalo 1, which is awful coming out of my mouth. But you have in that price range or within like $1,500, there's Minnesota, there's Anaheim, there's Calgary, which sounds disgusting now that I said it. There's Boston, like the Pasternak line. So like I do like Strome, Ovechkin, McMichael, but it's not a great power play matchup. The only issue is the Edmonton goaltending has been bad. And as I've said on shows previous, I'd rather play lines that if they're going to be over-owned, I'd rather play a line in a good 5-on-5 spot going up against a bad goalie than in a bad spot. Or I'd rather play an over-owned line in a good 5-on-5 spot against a good goalie than a bad 5-on-5 spot against a bad goalie. So, like, I'm kind of iffy on Washington 1 here. I think Washington 2 is okay, like a 2-man at Protas Wilson. I don't really want to play almost double-digit Justin Sordif. Like, he's fine, but, like, for DFS, he's just not great yet. So I prefer the Washington side, but I think from a tournament perspective, Edmonton is a very good play, but I just don't think I want to eat the ownership on the Washington side.
Yeah, I'll start on the Edmonton side. Them going 11-7 means those top guys are going to get a lot of minutes. Like McDavid and Draisaitl, like I feel reasonably confident saying, unless it's a complete blowout one way or another, they're both going to get over 22 minutes, maybe push like 24 minutes. Guys like Roslovic and Hyman are probably going to be in the high teens, if not pushing 20. Like they are going to get a lot of minutes. Like when a team goes 11-7 like this, it's to give their top forwards more ice time. It's not to give, Trent Frederick 17 or 18 minutes or something like that. You know what I mean?
More years on that deal, by the way.
Great contract. It's like Peter Chiarelli never left. So they're going to get a ton of minutes. And you're right. Like this is a bad 5-on-5 spot. Logan Thompson has generally been really, really good. He had that one pretty bad outing against Florida. Everything else, he's been like really stellar all season, stellar for most of last season. What I will say is that I think it's actually a good power play spot. Now, I say that with the caveat that the Oilers don't draw a lot of power plays. We say that all the time, and it's actually getting worse. Over the last 5 weeks, they're drawing 2.4 power play opportunities per game. Like it's the fourth lowest rate in the league. It's the lowest of any team on the board here tonight. And it's the lowest by quite a bit. It's the lowest by like 12. They're taking like 12 or 13. They're getting like 12 or 13% fewer power plays than the next closest team on the slate. I think it is Carolina. So that's a problem. But here's the flip side of that coin is one, Washington has been taking more penalties as the season's gone on. Over their last 15 games, the only team giving up more power plays per game than Washington are Boston, Florida, and Anaheim. Boston and Anaheim is going to be an interesting game. On top of that, the penalty kill has not been good. In that same span, if you look at Capitals goals against, 8th most in the league, 25th overall by goals against on the penalty kill. Their expected goals against, 6th worst in the league. We're talking like Calgary, San Jose territory. So, like, if the Oilers get 3 power plays here tonight, they can very easily go 2 for 3 against a penalty kill that's been really bad this year. And that includes with Logan Thompson, don't forget. Like, he's been great at even strength, 5-on-5. On the penalty kill, not as much. Whether it's up to him or because of his team, it doesn't really matter for our purposes. This isn't the best power play spot on the board because Boston and Anaheim are both here. But outside of them, I think it probably is the best of the three early games. So I agree with you. I'm fine with like a McDavid one-off, with a Draisaitl one-off. I would be pretty tempted to do some sort of 2-man or 3-man power play stack here. I would be taking from Draisaitl, McDavid, Hyman, Roslovic, Bouchard, and get 2 out of those 3 guys. Especially if I'm 20 maxing or higher or something like that. Just because you're right about the ownership. Like, I'll bring up the Edmonton ownership here. Like, Draisaitl's in the high teens. Wallman, Paul Cole's in around 10-11% because they're so cheap. Everybody else single digits. Like, yeah, maybe Connor McDavid, like you said, is like 11, 12, 13%. Like, that's nothing on a 4-game slate like this. Edmonton has not been good. We know that they can still absolutely nuke a slate at any given moment. Like, McDavid had a 3-point game against a 2-goal, 1-assist game against Carolina just a few days ago, right? So I if I'm playing a bunch of lineups here tonight, I would probably get at some sort of Edmonton power play stack in one of them. Now, whether you want to add in one of the cheap guys like Podkolzin, like Mangiapane, I think Savoie at 3K makes a lot of sense. Savoie 1.1 expected goals per 60 over his last 5 games. Playing with McDavid has really been driving his shot quality up. So at 3K, I think he makes a nice addition to any sort of stack. This is a bad 5-on-5 spot against a really good goalie. I think it's a really good power play spot for Edmonton. And this is a team where a couple power play goals, maybe they get an empty netter and you're in business. So I do like some sort of Edmonton power play stack, whether you do 2-man, 3-man. Stacking everybody gets a little bit expensive because then you're picking from 3 guys, or your other 3 skaters are probably going to all be under 2,800. But yeah, I think you should, especially if you're playing a bunch of lineups, you should really consider some sort of Edmonton power play. On the Washington side, listen, things have not been going well for the Oilers, and maybe earlier in the season you could make a case that some of their underlying numbers dictated a better fate. That hasn't been the case lately. If you look over the team's last 10 games, Jake Wallman, 3.4 expected goals against per 60 at 5-on-5. Darnell Nurse, 3.3. Ty Emberson, 3.1. Brett Kulak, 2.7. Even Ekholm and Bouchard are at 2.6. Those are all below average to awful defensive numbers over their last 10 games. This isn't a team that's been playing well defensively. The Caps are a very good offensive team. We still have Edmonton goaltending in net. So, like, I don't know. I kind of do like the Caps here. It's just a matter of what you want to do with them. 16.5 to 18.5 minutes for the top line. They might get more if the game is close. One thing I was noticing about Ovechkin, because I noticed he was shooting a lot, but not necessarily getting a lot of shots on goal. His shots per game this season is only 2.4, which is fairly low. I was looking earlier, he's only landing 34% of his shot attempts on net. To put that into context, last season he was at 46%. So, I think he's definitely due for some positive regression in that regard. The Edmonton PK, it's not awful, but they're not great. I certainly don't mind playing Washington 1 here. I'm not worried about any of the matchups on the Oilers side. There is quite a bit of ownership. Feels like a decent spot if you want a game stack. Like, you could do like a McDavid and Roslovic plus Washington 1 or something like that. I think that's perfectly fine. Like, this does seem like a game where there should be some goals here. Washington, I was looking at Washington top line without protest, 3.7 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5 this year. Like, they've been generating extremely well. I really do like Washington 1. Washington 2, I think they're fine, but I'm kind of like you. I don't want to play them at 2x or top 2 stack. Like, I'd rather just play the line that's coming in at least somewhat close owned. If you want to drop down to Washington 3 to put in with an Edmonton power play stack, I think that's fine. But for me in this game, I think I like Washington 1 just because they are so cheap and this is such a good matchup for them. But some sort of Edmonton power play stack can't be discounted.
Yeah, I mean, like, on the Washington side, I don't dislike them. I don't like their ownership. And when I don't like their ownership, and it's a good matchup, something I like to do, and we'll obviously talk about defensemen at the end, is play both Chychrun and Karlsson. I think that's an interesting way to get exposure to them because they're on the ice all the time. Before we move on, we have an $19 super chat, and it took me like 5 minutes to realize that that's today's date. From our pal, Grade A Fantasy, he said, "What's up, everybody? Josh and Cliffy, always a pleasure. Starting the birthday celebration with the week off of work and my favorite show on YouTube. Good luck to everyone tonight. Arden from Yonkers. Arden, if it's your birthday, happy birthday. I will say I was up in your area not too long ago on the Crotona Parkway, and I will also say I never want to drive on that parkway again. But happy birthday, and thank you for the super chat."
Yeah, thanks a lot, Arden. Certainly always appreciate your support, and definitely have a happy birthday. Have a great birthday week. Whatever you get up to, whether a nice dinner, whether you go out to the theater or whatever it is you decide to do. Maybe you just want to sit home and slam some cans and watch hockey. That's perfectly fine too. Whatever it is, thanks a lot for the support. Happy birthday. Appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, and I know it's your 21st, so let's take it easy, big guy. Don't turn green. Actually, I have no idea how old you are, but if 21st, be careful. Let's get to the worst game on the slate. Calgary Flames, 2.7 total. Heading into Buffalo, the Fighting DJ Mitchells have a 3.3 total. Buffalo going Thompson, Tuck, Doan, Quinn, Rosen, McLeod. I'll stop there. Calgary finished the game yesterday with Kadri, Huberdeau, Coronado, Farabee, Frost, Sharangovich, Coleman, Backlund, Zari. I don't know if they'll revert back to their old lines. We just don't know. I would like an educated guess says yes, but we could be completely wrong. The chalkiest spot in the night here is Buffalo 1. Thompson, Tuck, Doan, 17,400, 28.2% projected ownership, or top two stack, 31.3% projected ownership. That is nuts. And they don't have Doan on the top power play unit. That is also nuts. Here's the thing. Calgary is a very good 5-on-5 team, but Buffalo can dictate matchups here. And if they do run out Kadri, Huberdeau, Coronado, that Thompson line should see a fair bit of them. That's the line that you can take advantage of 5-on-5. It's a good power play matchup, and it's probably not going to be
I think they already said Devin Cooley's expected to start.
Yeah, Devin Cooley, we ragged on the home eight because he had terrible numbers in the AHL. Then he shut us up the same night. He's actually been all right, but let's pump the brakes on him a little bit. But I would be a lot more comfortable playing Buffalo 1 at 31% if Doan and or Tuck were on the top power play unit. Now, I will say Thompson and Doan looked very, very good together the other night when they were playing with each other. That sounded awful, but we move on.
Crazy?
Yeah. English, my first language, still not good at it. But, listen, of the 5-on-5 matchups, the one that they're going to be in is advantageous for them. They've looked well together in a small sample. The one thing holding me back is that power play time. So, at 17,400, 31.3% projected, I don't know, man, because, and we'll get to Boston at the end here for $200 more. You can get Pasternak for half the ownership. There's Ducks lines for half the ownership. There's Minnesota lines for half the ownership. I think in a nutshell, they're fine just because it's a good matchup at 5-on-5, but it's an even better power play matchup, and that's where I get hung up because it's only Thompson on the top power play there. I'm leaning towards fading them in my single entry. If they were fully correlated, it would be a completely different story. I just like some spots better for half the ownership. So I will like if someone DMs me and be like, "Hey, what do you think of this Buffalo 1 lineup?" I say, "Yeah, that looks great." But just for me, like I don't think I can do 31% Buffalo. You want to go down to Quinn, Rosen, McLeod. I think that's a little bit more viable. But the problem there is then you're going to start running into the Backlund Colemans, the Frosts of the world, and the 5-on-5 matchups get way worse. But Rosen and Quinn are on the top power play unit for super cheap. So I don't mind that 2-man because it is a very good power play matchup. So, like, Buffalo 1 is my favorite. I wish the power play correlation is better, but I don't mind going to Buffalo 2, even though the 5-on-5 is worse because you get 2 of the 3 on the power play, if that makes sense. On the Calgary side, we're going to have to wait and see what the lines are. You know, at worst, Kadri, Huberdeau, Coronado are fully correlated. So I don't mind them at 16,600 at 15%. But again, like, I'd rather play the Ducks. I'd rather play Pastrnak, you know. So, like, they're fine, but they're back-to-back on the road. I don't really love this game if you couldn't pick up what I was throwing down for the past few minutes. I really do like Buffalo 1. It's just I'm very hung up on it's only Thompson on the top power play unit.
Yeah, I will start with Buffalo. I agree with you. Like, that's the problem with Buffalo 1 is you're playing a super chalky line where there's one guy on the power play, and this is actually a good power play spot for them. The Flames 10th most penalties per game over the last 3 weeks. Their penalty kill, it's not improving. Third most shots against per minute on the penalty kill over the last 5 weeks, 26th by expected goals against. The only thing that has been saving them is Dustin Wolf and Devin Cooley. You can't rely on your goaltending to be great every night, especially on the penalty kill. So, like, this is a good power play spot for Buffalo, but you only get Thompson on the top power play. The good news here, if there is good news about playing chalk Buffalo Sabres, which that can go very poorly very quickly.
Oxymoron.
Jack Quinn, 3,600. Isaac Rosen, 3,300. Noah Osland, 2,800. All those guys are uber cheap. So you can play Buffalo 1, throw in one of those guys, and it not only does it drastically reduce the average cost per player of the line, gets you the additional power play exposure, and then you can still go and afford like an Edmonton 2-man or a Minnesota 2-man or something like that, right? Because they are so cheap. So, like, I'm not a huge fan of playing super chalk Buffalo Sabres. Like, that just feels like absolute nightmare fuel to me. But it is a good 5-on-5 matchup for that top line, because if they go back to their old lines, the Calgary top line with Frost there, 3 expected goals against per 60. The Kadri line, not a big sample yet, but 59 shot attempts per 60. That's worse than league average. Like, those aren't good defensive lines. The only, like you said, the only line you have to worry about is the Backlund line, and they won't see a lot of them. So if I do play Buffalo, I certainly go to the top line. Like, your point about Doan and Thompson playing well together, I mean, they've only played about 50 minutes together, but 71 shot attempts and 3 expected goals per 60, or 3.5 expected goals per 60 in their minutes together. So I am perfectly fine with like going Buffalo 1 plus Rosen, Buffalo 1 plus Osland, like something like that. Like I said, you can bring down the average cost of the line and still fit in some pretty expensive players that are available elsewhere in the slate. So I think that's what I would do with the Sabres. I haven't made a decision on whether or not I'm going to play them. Like I said, I just the spot is fine. They're playing the backup goalie. It's just I wish I could shut my brain off and just not tell myself that it's super chalk Buffalo Sabres tonight, because that just feels like, 10 p.m. rolls around and you're already dead. Like, that's just kind of the way that's my gut feel. That's certainly not what the projections in the top stack say. It's just me having played DFS for over a decade now. On the Calgary side, Buffalo's penalty kill, we always talk about their save percentage. It's been starting to come down, obviously. Calgary power play's not been that great. A lot of it is shooting percentage driven. A lot of their problems offensively at every strength are shooting percentage driven. Kadri, Huberdeau, and Coronado, if that is indeed the top line, 16,600. I think they're definitely playable. I would be more interested in one-offing some guys from Calgary, one-offing Kadri, one-offing Coronado. If you need a cheap two-man, like a Coleman Backlund two-man or something like that, I think is playable here. I noticed Frost, I think he only played 13 minutes and change last night. Like, seems like he's starting to fall out of favor a little bit with the team. I don't mind Calgary one if it is Kadri, Huberdeau, and Coronado. It's a fine matchup at 5-on-5 for them, but there are a lot of lines in that price range. Like just between 16 and 18K, there are 8 lines on the board here tonight. So like this, it's not a case where they're almost like on an island and you have to make a big decision on them. There are a lot of other spots you can go to. You don't have to force in Calgary. I don't mind playing them. I think I prefer the Buffalo side. This game just feels like a complete headache all the way around.
Yeah. This is one of those, it's like, yeah, it feels kind of fine to put in like a Rosen Quinn two-man, and then, like Alex Tuck has like 41 DK points because he has a shorthanded goal, block bonus, and 3 assists.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, and he's been getting fewer minutes, but that's why I would generally leave him in. He just plays like at all strengths, empty net and all that. So like, yeah, it does feel like a headache.
Carolina Hurricanes. You hear the calming when you could say Carolina Hurricanes. 3.3 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 2.7. Minnesota going Danila Yurov with Zuccarello and Kaprizov, Boldy, Eriksson, Ek, Johansson. Carolina going Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov, Ehlers, Stankov, and Blake, Martinook, Stahl, Carrier. If you are unfamiliar with Danila Yurov, he is a good prospect. But keep that word in mind. He is a prospect. I've seen full comps, him comped out to like Vincent Trocheck, Rope Hintz, guys like that. He's not that player. Just keep that in mind. That's if he hits his full potential. I think he is a good player. For DFS right now, I think Kaprizov can elevate anyone, so let's talk about it. How often can you get a Kaprizov line at 16K? Like, you just can't. So, you have Kaprizov and Zook on the top power play unit here. The problem is Carolina, despite their defensive struggles at 5-on-5, still have an elite penalty kill. Arguably the best in the league. We aren't going to argue about it, but arguably. So like now you're looking at 5-on-5 matchups, right? And assuming Joel Eriksson Ek takes the Aho matchup, which is a safe assumption, you're going to see that Kaprizov line go out against the Stankoven line. And that's actually been their best defensive line on the team. So now you're just kind of like, well, crap. I'm probably out on them. I think a Kaprizov one-off is fine. It's like similar to Pasternak. Like, I don't give a crap what the matchup is. He's a guy I will always say yes to a one-off. So then you move to the second line. They have 15% projected ownership at 16,600. And they're going out against Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov, second best defensive line on the team. And you're like, well, crap. I don't really want to play chalk Minnesota without Kaprizov. So, like, almost by default, I think I'm out on Minnesota outside of, like, a Kaprizov one-off.
I thought you were going to say by default I'm on Marcus Foligno and Yakov training.
No.
Okay.
I have some limits to my madness, and that's one of them. So, like, by default, I'm pretty much out on Minnesota here. I think a Kaprizov one-off is fine. A Boldy one-off is fine, but generally speaking, I'm out on Minnesota. The Carolina side interests me a lot more. Now, Eriksson Ek, Boldy, Johansson, they haven't been together much this season, but they do have good defensive numbers. or like the past few seasons when they've been together, they've historically been fine defensively. It's the other lines that have issues. Now, that Eriksson Ek line is going to see Carolina 1. And if it was a bigger slate, I'd be a little bit lower on Carolina 1 here because they're 19,400, the most expensive line on the night. But they're fully correlated, and Minnesota penalty kill is god awful. And they're coming in at 4% projected. And, 19,400, while expensive, it's not very price prohibitive if you're not playing Edmonton big boys on this slate. So, I do have interest in Carolina 1 here. It's a very, very good power play matchup. I think at their best, they can beat almost any defensive line. Like Eriksson Ek, Boldy, Johansson have been fine, but they're not prime Bergeron and they're not prime Jordan Stahl. They're better than league average, and that's saying a lot on this Minnesota team, but this Carolina 1 line is excellent. So at 4.2% fully correlated, I do like them. That being said, my favorite line on Carolina is Stankov and Blake Ehlers. And no, Jake did not pay me to say that. And yes, I'm going to assume that he has Carolina 2 full line goals posted on tails. That's just what he does. They will be getting that Kaprizov-Zuccarello-Urov matchup. And listen, whether it was Rossi, whether it was Hartman, whether it's Urov, they're going to be underwater defensively. That Carolina 2 line has been excellent. Now, they don't play a ton of minutes, but it's kind of baked into their price at 14,400. You get Ehlers on the top power play. They're coming in right at their top 2 stack percentage. So I think Carolina 2 is my favorite, and I definitely think there's merit to going to Carolina 1 here. 1, because they're an excellent line. 2, it's a great power play matchup. And 3, the ownership is very low. I think if you need a cheap 2-man like Stahl, Martinook, Stahl, Carrier is fine, but I also think this is a slate where you could one-off Taylor Hall or something like that if it's super necessary. But for me, it's Carolina top 6, and I'm out on Minnesota.
Yeah, I was going to say, you called out Carolina 4 the other day, and then didn't Taylor Hall have a goal and assist, and then Mark Jankowski scored or something like that? I mean, those things happen. So this is one of those spots where it's both a good and both not a good power play spot for Carolina. And the reason I say that is because you're right about the wild penalty kill. It's not good. Even as it's gotten a little bit better since the early portions of the season, they're still well below average. This is not a penalty. This is a good power play spot for the power play itself. Problem is Minnesota just doesn't take penalties. They're at 2.3 times shorthanded per game. It's the lowest in the league so far this season. And believe it or not, Carolina's not drawing a ton of power plays. Carolina's at 2.7 power play opportunities per game over the last 5 weeks. It's the 7th lowest rate in the league. This is a team that usually is pretty good at drawing power plays, and they just have not been so far this season. On top of that, I mean, the power plays looked good in the games that I've watched, but they haven't been scoring. The Carolina top power play unit shooting under 8%. So it's one of those things if the shooting percentage stays low and they only get a couple opportunities tonight, how good of a power play spot is it actually? Now, they could go 2 for 2 here tonight. We saw Vegas do that last night. Sorry.
I had that coming. I did it to you yesterday.
So, that happens, but that's why it both is and is not a good power play spot here for Carolina, because it is, when you look at how poorly the Minnesota penalty kill has performed this year. But the fact that they don't take a ton of penalties means that they're not giving up a ton of power play goals against. Even with one of the worst penalty kills in the league. So I shouldn't say one of the worst, a very below average penalty kill over the last 6 weeks. They're better than league average in power play goals against per game. So I don't know, 19,400. It feels like if I'm going to pay up for a line that's close to 20K, I'm going to do it with some sort of Edmonton power play stack. I'll do a McDavid, Roslovic, Hyman stack or something like that. You know what I mean? I think that's probably the direction I would go. I have more interest in the Carolina depth. That Carolina second line, 3.8 expected goals per 60 in their 80 minutes together. Nikolai Ehlers, you mentioned the other day, he's not getting a ton of ice time. He's playing 16 to 17 minutes because he's still getting top power play time. Even with that minimal ice time, he has 16 shots in his last 5 games. This guy just puts up volume. And Minnesota's not been that great defensively at 5-on-5. Like, even as they've gotten better through the season, over the last 10 games, they're below league average 5-on-5 expected goals against. This is not a team that, even as they're getting better, that is to be feared at 5-on-5. Like, I do think they should have the run of the play, especially, once you get into the depth defense pairs, once you get past the Eriksson and Marcus Johansson matchup. Like, I think it's a pretty good matchup here for Carolina too. Like, the ice time isn't great. It's kind of baked into the price anyway. And, you can fit them in with some sort of Edmonton power play stack because they are cheap enough to do that. So I think I like Carolina 2 best on the Carolina side. If you want to drop down to the third line, I think that's fine. Maybe you'll get a one-handed Jordan Staal goal again like he had the other night, which is, what the hell, man?
He does that once in a while.
It's crazy. Like, every once in a while you remember, like, he's actually a gifted offensive player. He just doesn't care about offense. It's like everybody used to talk about Ichiro. Like, you'd watch him in batting practice and he'd just launch bomb after bomb. And then he'd get into a game and just slap a single to left field all the time.
He could have hit 50 home runs a season if he wanted to.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of like that. But either way, Carolina 2 for me on the Carolina side. On the Minnesota side, like, I'm of two minds here. One mind is, like, obviously this isn't a great matchup. Like, Carolina's not been their best at 5-on-5. But even at them struggling at 5-on-5 defensively, still like around league average with a really good penalty kill. The flip side of that is they do take penalties, 3.3 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. It's just outside the top 10, like just out behind Calgary for top 10 in the league, not in a good way. And we know the Minnesota power play has definitely had their moments this season. And this is a 4-game slate where we have Kirill Kaprizov under 8% projected ownership. It's one of those. It's kind of like McDavid. Like, I don't care about the matchup when I have one of the three best offensive wingers in hockey at single-digit ownership at home on a 4-game slate when the opposing team is missing their best defensive defenseman. It's one of those things, like, you have to at least consider it. I think I would still prefer to play Edmonton over Minnesota, but if you do want to build a Minnesota lineup, I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, Kaprizov and Zuccarello haven't been great offensively yet. 53 shot attempts, 2.6 expected goals per 60 in their minutes together. But, Kaprizov's playing 21 minutes a game, 22 minutes sometimes. Zuccarello in the high teens. I don't know. I think, given would I rather play Minnesota at home to Carolina or Edmonton on the road to Washington is kind of how, like, I'm looking at this. And I think I would rather play Edmonton on the road in Minnesota or in Washington, sorry. But I understand people that might want to play Minnesota instead because I just keep staring at Kirill Kaprizov 7.9% ownership and it's scaring the hell out of me. If you want to stack the second line, I guess that's fine. But to me, it feels like Tampa Bay. Playing a line without Kucherov. I mean, it could have worked last night, I guess. But, Kucherov still had a pretty good night. That's how that goes. So for me, it's Minnesota 1, but I think I prefer the Carolina side. I don't imagine I'm going to be playing the Wild here tonight. So, and I like the cheaper Carolina lines better.
Yep. Let's get to Super Bowl 19 for Frostback. He's not here. He's probably, whatever. I'm upset at him. Boston Bruins, 2.8 total. Heading into Anaheim, the Ducks have a 3.6. Boston going Pasternak, Geeky, Kuznetsov, Zaka, Blumel, and Steves. The only reason I mention that line is Zaka and Blumel are on the top power play unit. Yikes. Anaheim going Carlson, Terry, Kreider, Gauthier, McTavish, Seneca, Vetrano, Killorn, Strome. This is a fun late hammer. It's not the Sharks, it's not the Kraken, and it's not the Flames. So we take it when we can get it. I'll start on the Ducks side because both of these top two lines are right in the same price range. $16,300 for the McTavish line, $16,700 for the Leo Carlson line. The Carlson Terry Kreider line is fully correlated, 16.4% top two stack, 16.7% projected ownership, right in line. The Gauthier line, 16.3, 14.8% top two, 14.9% projected ownership, also right in line. The one thing that worries me about the Gauthier line is Mason McTavish. Seneca's minutes also have been coming down. McTavish has been taking a ton of penalties lately. A couple more high sticking penalties. He'll be on the next bus to Guatemala. So, I think for me, almost by default, it's Carlson, Terry, Kreider. They're fully correlated. It's a good power play matchup. Carlson and Terry play a ton of minutes. I had concerns about Carlson's minutes with Strome coming back. He's still playing a heavy dose. So it would be the Carlson, Terry, Kreider line for me at 16.7. If you want to make it a power play stack, I think you can add in Gauthier, add in Lacombe, go about your day. It does feel kind of bad leaving Gauthier off a stack. But it's not like he's playing 19, 20 minutes. He's been playing 16, 17, 18. So it's viable at his price. I think Anaheim 1 is where I'm at. I have concerns about McTavish and Seneca on that second line. So with the price and ownership being in a similar range, I'm just going to go to the Carlson Terry Kreider line. On the Boston side, this is just a good 5-on-5 matchup. It's a good power play matchup. I don't particularly love playing Kuznetsov. I think a Pastrnak geeky two-man is where I'm at. If you want to leave in Kuznetsov and add in Pavel Zacha, it makes it, I think, 18-6 or something like that for a power play stack. Blumel's 3K on the top power play unit. You can add him in, I guess. But for me, I'm just focusing on Pastrnak, Geeky, and adding them in with a Hampus Lindholm on the blue line. It's kind of just give me Pastrnak and get out of here. But I guess I could bring Geeky along for the ride. So it would be Boston 1. It would be Anaheim 1. I think there's some other power play guys you can add in.
Yeah. So Anaheim was at home to Utah the other night. And that was the game where Anaheim scored late and then pulled out the overtime winner. I noticed that they sent out Jacob Trouba and Olin Zellweger quite a bit against the Keller, Schmaltz, Cooley line, and they got absolutely obliterated.
That was a shocker.
I mean, they got the shit kicked out of them by the Utah top line. I bring that up because I think Zellweger has taken a step forward this year, a big one. Obviously, Trouba has been a lot better under the new coaching staff in Anaheim than he's been at any point in the last 5 years. I don't think that pair is ready for top line matchups playing 24 minutes a night. Their only other options, Jackson Lacombe and Drew Hellison, which has not been a good defensive pair either. 2.9 expected goals against, 3.7 actual goals against per 60 at 5-on-5. I don't think they have a defensive pair that matches up well against Boston 1. We kind of kick rocks at Kuznetsov, but since he's been put on the top line, they're at 2.8 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Basically as good as when Elias Lindholm was there, if not better, actually. Low bar, but whatever. I don't have a real matchup concern from the Boston side. And these are the two most penalized teams in the NHL over the last 5 weeks. Boston's at 2 of the 3, sorry. Boston's at 3.9 times shorthanded per game. Anaheim's at 3.8. The only team between them is Florida. They also both draw a fair amount of power plays. They're both above league average in that regard. This seems like a special teams matchup on both sides that is perfectly fine. It's not like either penalty kill has been great. I would say Boston has probably been a little bit better, but if you look at the Ducks on the PK, 20th by goals against over the last 5 weeks. Boston's actually giving up a few more expected goals against, on the penalty kill over the last 5 weeks. Like, this is a good power play spot for both sides. I worry about Boston's power play. Like, at a certain point, we have to remember Boston's power play was pretty bad for a couple of years post Bergeron. They were fine to start this season. Now they're missing McAvoy. Now they're missing Arvidsson. You have, like, think of Blumel being on power play 1. The Dallas Stars were so starved for a depth guy that could be okay in the lineup that they can pay $800K because they're so tight to the cap, and they're like, nah, see you later. Whether he could regain his game in Boston, I don't know. I think Boston 1 is perfectly playable here. Like, this team really is missing quite a few forwards. Like, they like Alex Steves and Blumel on the second line. Like, they have to play their top guys quite a bit. It's a good 5-on-5 matchup. It's a good power play matchup. I'm perfectly fine with Boston, but I'm going to be honest, quack, quack. Like this screams Ducks game to me. Even as the Anaheim top line has slowed down, I was looking over the last 10 games. Their last 10 games, they're still at 3.5 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5. You mentioned Carlson's ice time, 22.5 minutes since Ryan Strome came back per game. Even Troy Terry's up near 20 minutes. Perfectly correlated on power play 1. Boston penalty kill has not been good. They don't have Charlie McAvoy. I really like Anaheim 1 here. I think I would just straight up turn it into a power play stack. I can't leave Cutter Gauthier off. Cutter Gauthier has a shot bonus in 10 of his 19 games this season. He has a shot bonus in over half his games. Like, you can't leave that type of guy off the stack. So I would just straight up power play stack Anaheim here. I would put the top line. I think Beckett Seneca got some top power play time as well for Anaheim in their last game. So whether you want to put in Seneca, whether you want to Gauthier, I would kind of, even if Gauthier is moved off that top power play, I would still have a hard time making a stack without him. But at the very least, I really do like Anaheim 1 here. Going to be honest, at this point, I don't know if I can play Mason McTavish anymore, at least until he's out of the doghouse, because I can't play this guy and then have him sit on the bench for 17 minutes in a game, plus 4 minutes in the penalty box or whatever. Until he's out of the doghouse, like, I think I would prefer to dip down to the third line. Vetrano, Killorn, and Strome. Killorn and Vetrano this year, 73 shot attempts, 3.1 expected goals per 60 in their ice time together. They're cheap enough where you can play them with a Minnesota power play stack, with an Edmonton power play stack, that type of thing. It's the only reason I bring them up. Anaheim 1 is easily my favorite line in this game, but I don't want to discount Boston 1 just because they're going to have to get good minutes, and this is a pretty good power play spot for them.
I was thinking as you're talking, because, like, every time we mention a Pastrnak line, it's always like 2.8 expected goals, 2.9. He's one of those guys who kind of breaks expected goals models, kind of like Artemi Panarin. Like, you just have to realize that, like, he's elite. The numbers are going to be weird.
Yeah, I know the website HockeyViz does estimates on shooting and passing talent, and I'm pretty sure, like, his shooting talent is like 98th percentile and his passing talent is 99th percentile. Those are the things that drive goal scoring. He's amongst the elite two-way players in the NHL.
Yeah. Let's talk about defensemen here. Top of the board, Bouchard, Rasmus Dahlin, Jacob Chychrun, Mackenzie Weegar, Shane Gostisbehere, John Carlson. And then Jackson Lacombe. That's 4,800 to 6,300. I normally don't mention that, but there isn't like a massive top range here. I think, as we talked about in the Edmonton game, you take all 5 power play guys and you pick 3 of them. I think, if I was ranking them, I think Bouchard would be like 3A with Hyman. So, like, I don't mind him there. As a one-off, I'd probably go to Rasmus Dahlin in the top range. I think, as I talked about with Washington, if I don't really like the skaters, but it's a good matchup, I like to play one or both of Chychrun and Carlson. I think they're both perfectly fine here. Jackson Lacombe in a power play matchup, he's down to 4,800. He was, high or mid 5s for most of this season. He finally scored. Maybe that gets him going on the score sheet. So, I'm fine with Bouchard, but I'd rather play Rasmus Dahlin, the Washington guys, and Lacombe.
Yeah, only 2 defensemen over 6K here on the board. They are Dahlin and Bouchard. Dahlin easily the number one by point projection. He's like over 4.5 points higher, over 50% higher than Bouchard. Obviously, much better point per dollar proposition. Dahlin's also going to be popular, but yeah, it's Dahlin then Bouchard. The mid-price range there just are a lot of guys. Like Lacombe is number one on my board for the guys under 6K. He's also has the second highest projection of any defenseman on Stochastic here tonight. So Lacombe certainly. Jake Wallman, like he's under 5K. He shoots and blocks. He's also playing like absolute ass. Like I've watched a handful of Oilers games over the last couple of weeks. And Jake Wallman is a guy I've liked going back to his time in St. Louis. I always liked him, thought he'd be a breakout player. He has not looked good since coming back from injury. He just has not. I know he's had some big DFS games, and he can do that, which is why he's projected where he is. He's not playing well. You could probably say that about every defenseman on their blue line, honestly. I mean, Rasmus Anderson, still power play one for Calgary, under 5K. I think he's very playable. Darnell Nurse, like he's under 5K. I do worry with the whole 7 defenseman thing. Like everybody except Bouchard is going to get their minutes cut back. Maybe Bouchard and Ekholm. So that's something to consider. Sean Walker, since Gostisbehere and Keandre Miller came back, Sean Walker still leads them in Carolina in ice time per game. So a little over 4K. I think he's playable. Obviously, Chychrun he's number 3 by projections here tonight, just behind a ways behind Dahlin, but near the same as Jackson Lacombe. So Chychrun, I think, very playable in a very good matchup against Edmonton. Shane Gostisbehere, I think you add him in if you're playing some sort of Carolina stack. I don't know if I'd just solo him. Under 4K, Hampus Lindholm, obviously, Andrew Peeke, the Boston guys that are going to be getting more minutes without McAvoy. Matt Roy, he had I always go to NHL.com to look at the highlights the next morning because, I'm just watching one game at a time, and then I'll look at the highlights the next morning. It says Matt Roy, first goal of the season, tip in. It's like, huh. I go and look at the goal. He's standing in front of the net. There's honestly not a single player within 25 feet of him. It was like a force field around him of 20 to 25 feet. I have no idea what the hell happened. But anyways, Matt Roy, perfectly fine. Olin Zellweger, Matthias Samuelsson from Buffalo. Under 3K, Nikita Zadorov, Connor Timmins, and Rasmus Sandin stick out.
Let's talk about goalies. If you like one, play one. Well, we'll see you tomorrow. Basically, I don't really like the top range here. It's Freddie and Dostal. Like, I guess Dostal is fine. I don't really want to play Freddie. 1, for shot volume concerns. 2, he hasn't been great. So I guess in the top range it'd be Dostal. But, like, for me, I'm in the mid-range and the cheap guys. I think Colton Ellis makes a lot of sense at 7,700 against the Flames. Logan Thompson, I think, is fine. I worry about shot volume there. Edmonton's kind of one of those teams where, like, it's either 1 goal on 27 shots or 4 goals on 23 shot type of deals. So I worry about that there. I think Jesper Wallstedt is interesting as well. He had a terrible season last year, but he's a good goalie prospect. Goalies are strange characters. He's only had 1 really bad game this season, and strangely enough, it was against the Sharks. Carolina is a high-volume team, so I don't mind Jesper Wallstedt here either.
Yeah, Colton Ellis is number 1 in the projections. I mean, any goalie against Calgary is quite often going to be at or near the top of the projections. I think he's perfectly fine here tonight. Logan Thompson is interesting because Edmonton's not scoring well at 5-on-5, so technically, like, it's a good 5-on-5 matchup for Thompson. It's a very bad power play matchup for him. So I worry, like, 2 goals against on 4 power play shots, and it just ruins his night. Maybe he still gets the win, and it's fine. I don't mind Thompson. I think Jesper Wallstedt for Minnesota certainly does make a lot of sense. I mean, he's still a top prospect. This is their goalie of the future. Maybe he's finally taking the reins. The three goalies I have are Ellis, Thompson, and Wallstedt. I think Lucas Dostal makes a lot of sense too. There's some shutout equity there. I also noticed in the goalie stats, he's one of the three goalies projected for at least, or one of two goalies projected for at least 26 saves and fewer than 3 goals against. The other one being Colton Ellis. So I think Dostal is fine. So yeah, Ellis, Thompson, Wallstedt, Dostal. Those are the guys for me in that order.
I know someone's going to ask, and if it's Swayman, I think just from a pure shot volume perspective, he's fine. That the team in front of him is enough for me to go down to like Wallstedt.
Yeah, and also, no, sorry, Dostal was confirmed. I was just making sure because I know Anaheim plays tomorrow, so I was like, maybe they don't start Dostal, but he was confirmed, so nothing to worry about there.
Yep, we will be back tomorrow for that slate, so stay tuned for that. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
How could this possibly go wrong? Jack Quinn.
It's funny enough, I initially wrote down Isaac Rosen. I was like, oh my God, that is just like dirty New York City hot dog water. So I am going to go Nikolai Ehlers because he's a fan favorite of ours.
Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, it's a 4-game slate. You can like Nikolai Ehlers and Jesper Wallstedt at the same time. Having one skater against your goalie on a short slate is okay, so don't feel like you have to play one or the other. You could potentially do both. I don't really recommend it, but as long as you're not like full stacking against your goalie, one guy is fine because you can't expect a goalie to have a 41 save shutout every time he goes out there. That's my TED Talk. Thank you for coming out. Good luck, everybody, tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Good luck tonight, everyone.